The colonel marched proud before the recruits, but one lightning strike from the nurse sent him crashing to the dirt and made every SEAL candidate question everything they thought they knew about warfare. The humid Virginia air hung thick over Naval Special Warfare Group 2's training compound, where Lieutenant Commander Jessica "Doc" Martinez had endured 9 months of relentless dismissal from the most elite warriors in the American military. They saw her medical officer's insignia as proof she belonged in a sterile hospital ward rather than among operators who lived and breathed tactical excellence. The condescension came in constant waves. During weapon demonstrations where she struggled with equipment designed for operators twice her size, through combat scenarios where her obvious reluctance to engage in physical violence marked her as fundamentally unsuited for special operations culture, and especially during the whispered conversations that followed her everywhere, like a shadow, she couldn't escape. Before we reveal how one moment of combat artistry changed everything at America's most elite training facility, tell us in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe that true warriors come in forms nobody expects, hit that subscribe button to join our community. What you're about to witness will revolutionize your understanding of combat effectiveness. There goes our walking medical dictionary, Colonel James Titan Burke would announce whenever she approached their training areas, his voice carrying the kind of contempt that ensured every SEAL candidate could participate in the institutional mockery that had become Lieutenant Commander Martinez's daily reality. They watched her fumble with tactical gear that seemed too complex for her academic background, smirked when she appeared overwhelmed by displays of raw combat prowess that were second nature to warriors bred for violence, and treated her presence like a bureaucratic requirement imposed by Pentagon administrators who had never experienced real warfare. What they couldn't have imagined, what their operational arrogance had completely blinded them to, was that the woman they dismissed as the weakest element in their training environment possessed combat skills that made their elite preparation look like amateur hour, and that when their commanding officer finally pushed the boundaries too far, she would demonstrate why her previous assignments had been classified at levels that made their security clearances look like library cards. They only knew her as Lieutenant Commander Jessica Martinez, the Navy medical officer assigned to provide healthcare oversight for SEAL team candidates during their advanced tactical preparation at the most classified training facility on the East Coast. 9 months into what should have been routine medical support, she had become the unit's unofficial symbol of administrative weakness, living proof that modern military policies forced elite combat units to accommodate personnel who clearly lacked the warrior mentality required for successful special operations in hostile territory. Lieutenant Commander Martinez stood exactly 5 feet 4 inches in her regulation combat boots, with auburn hair that fought military grooming standards despite her obvious efforts to maintain professional appearance, and green eyes that seemed to absorb the constant harassment with what appeared to be patient resignation rather than building determination. She moved through her medical responsibilities with clinical precision while enduring systematic abuse that would have broken lesser personnel, maintaining professional composure that suggested she understood her role was healthcare support rather than tactical participation in their world of calculated aggression and measured lethality. To Colonel James Titan Burke, a man whose nickname came from both his imposing 6 feet 5 inches frame and his legendary reputation for physically dominating enemies in close-quarters combat, Lieutenant Commander Martinez represented everything that was systematically weakening American special operations capability. Here was a commanding officer who had earned his position through demonstrated ability to neutralize threats with his bare hands, who believed that combat effectiveness came from superior physical conditioning and tactical aggression, who viewed warfare as fundamentally about imposing your will through superior violence. His office walls displayed a testament to combat dominance. Photos of him subduing insurgent leaders during classified operations, conducting hand-to-hand combat training with elite international forces, and leading close-quarters battle scenarios that required absolute tactical supremacy. Burke had built his formidable reputation through proven ability to eliminate threats in the most demanding combat environments, understanding that special operations success depended on warriors who could transition seamlessly from tactical planning to lethal execution. Colonel Burke's training philosophy emphasized combat instincts, tactical aggression, and the psychological conditioning required to dominate enemies through superior fighting capability when American interests demanded ultimate solutions to strategic problems involving hostile forces and enemy combatants. The medical officer provides adequate clinical support during training exercises. Burke had mentioned to his senior instructor cadre during weekly assessment meetings, but her presence creates cultural friction that interferes with the predatory mindset we need to develop effective SEAL operators. Combat training requires understanding that warfare isn't academic. It's personal, immediate, and absolutely dependent on warrior instincts when SEALs face enemies who want to test our combat effectiveness. Master Chief Petty Officer Antonio Viper Rodriguez, who served as Burke's senior enlisted advisor and possessed extensive experience integrating support personnel into SEAL training environments, offered perspective based on his observations during Martinez's extended assignment to their facility. Colonel, her medical competence during exercises has been exceptional. Trauma response is flawless. Battlefield medicine knowledge comprehensive, Rodriguez replied, while reviewing training metrics. Her understanding of combat injuries exceeds most military medical personnel we've encountered during operational deployments. Burke's concerns extended beyond medical competence to fundamental questions about Martinez's psychological compatibility with the intensely aggressive culture that defines successful SEAL operations and their effectiveness in eliminating strategic threats to American security interests. Master Chief, medical skills become irrelevant without warrior instincts, Burke explained while studying personnel reports. Martinez observes our training like academic research instead of understanding we're developing operators to eliminate America's enemies through precision application of combat techniques. The SEAL candidates had developed their assessment of Lieutenant Commander Martinez based on 9 months of daily interaction and careful observation of her reactions to their demanding preparation for the world's most challenging military missions. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Blade Thompson, a combat veteran whose tactical expertise and proven effectiveness had earned him recognition as one of the program's most promising operators, had emerged as the informal spokesman for candidate concerns about their assigned medical officer's apparent disconnection from SEAL culture and operational requirements. Doc Martinez handles standard medical procedures professionally, Thompson commented to fellow candidates, but she doesn't understand what makes SEAL operations different from regular military medicine. Chief Petty Officer David Ghost Williams offered alternative perspective. Some medical officers focus on healthcare without embracing tactical culture. Doesn't mean they can't function when situations get demanding. This reflected prevailing opinion among most candidates. Martinez's professional distance from unit tactical activities suggested fundamental incompatibility with supporting elite operations where combat effectiveness determined mission success and personnel survival in hostile environments. The confrontation that would completely transform everyone's understanding occurred during Week 10 of Advanced Tactical Training, when Colonel Burke decided to conduct a comprehensive combat assessment designed to demonstrate the warrior qualities that define successful SEAL operators under realistic combat conditions. The assessment was specifically designed to evaluate individual combat capability, tactical instincts, and psychological resilience during scenarios where superior fighting skills determine mission accomplishment and operator survival in hostile territory. Lieutenant Commander Martinez was positioned to provide medical oversight from the training area perimeter, where she could monitor the combat assessment while remaining available for immediate medical response if training injuries occurred during the demanding tactical evaluations. But the assessment became something far more personal when Colonel Burke decided that Martinez's obvious disconnection from SEAL warrior culture required direct demonstration of why combat effectiveness mattered more than academic medical knowledge in special operations environments. The confrontation began when Colonel Burke approached Martinez's medical station with the commanding presence that had intimidated enemies and subordinates for over 2 decades of special operations service. Lieutenant Commander Martinez, Burke announced with authority that commanded immediate attention from every SEAL candidate within earshot. I think it's time we conducted a practical demonstration of why warrior instincts matter in SEAL operations. Combat effectiveness isn't theoretical. It's about dominating opponents when everything depends on superior fighting capability. Lieutenant Commander Martinez looked up from her medical preparations with the same professional composure she maintained during routine interactions, but something in her green eyes suggested she understood this wasn't a standard training demonstration. Colonel Burke, I'm prepared to provide medical support for whatever combat assessment you've planned. She replied with measured professionalism that contrasted with the obvious tension building among candidates who had gathered to witness what they expected would be Martinez's final exposure as unsuitable for SEAL environments. Colonel Burke positioned himself in the combat demonstration area with the casual confidence of someone who had mastered every aspect of close-quarters fighting through decades of training and operational experience, understanding that his size and combat expertise would prove overwhelming for someone with Martinez's obvious limitations. Lieutenant Commander, effective SEAL operations require understanding that combat is personal and immediate, Burke explained while the gathered candidates formed a circle around the demonstration area. I want you to attempt basic defensive procedures so these candidates can understand why warrior instincts are absolutely essential for operational success. What happened next would be analyzed, studied, and remembered throughout naval special warfare as a demonstration of combat capability that challenged every assumption about fighting effectiveness, tactical training, and the relationship between appearance and actual combat performance. Colonel Burke approached Lieutenant Commander Martinez with the methodical advance of someone whose combat experience had taught him to evaluate opponents quickly and exploit their obvious weaknesses through superior size and tactical knowledge. But Lieutenant Commander Martinez's response to his advance revealed something that made his confident expression transform into confusion, then amazement, then something approaching genuine concern about what he had initiated. Her stance shifted with fluid precision that suggested combat training far beyond anything available through standard medical officer preparation, her movements flowing into defensive positioning that demonstrated tactical knowledge and fighting instincts that exceeded conventional military instruction. Colonel Burke, Martinez said with the same clinical tone she used during medical consultations, your advance pattern exhibits tactical vulnerabilities that could compromise effectiveness against trained opponents. Before Colonel Burke could process the implications of her tactical assessment, Lieutenant Commander Martinez demonstrated combat capability that exceeded anything the gathered candidates had witnessed during their combined years of elite military training. Her movement was explosive precision, a single technique that utilized Burke's forward momentum and superior size against him while demonstrating fighting knowledge that transformed his physical advantages into tactical liabilities through superior technique and biomechanical understanding. The technique she employed was flawlessly executed combat artistry that used his approach vector and center of gravity to generate throwing force that exceeded his ability to maintain balance or counter her. Tactical application of leverage and timing. Colonel Burke, a man who had dominated opponents through superior size and combat experience for over 20 years, found himself airborne and then impacting the ground with force that demonstrated Martinez's complete mastery of combat physics and fighting effectiveness. The sound of his 250-pound frame hitting the training ground echoed across the facility like a thunderclap that shattered every assumption the SEAL candidates had developed about combat capability, warrior effectiveness, and the fundamental nature of fighting skills. Lieutenant Commander Martinez remained in perfect tactical position while Colonel Burke struggled to process what had occurred, her breathing completely normal, her stance suggesting she could repeat the technique indefinitely if tactical circumstances required continued combat engagement. Colonel Burke, you've experienced a tactical throw that exploited your approach, angle, and momentum distribution, she explained with clinical detachment while extending her hand to assist his recovery. The technique demonstrates how superior fighting knowledge can neutralize physical advantages through biomechanical precision and tactical timing. The training facility was completely silent as 30 SEAL candidates, multiple instructors, and facility personnel tried to comprehend what they had witnessed. Someone they had dismissed as unsuitable for tactical environments had just dominated their commanding officer through combat skills that exceeded anything in their collective military experience. Colonel Burke accepted Martinez's assistance while processing the profound implications of what had just occurred, understanding that his assessment of her capabilities had been catastrophically incorrect. Outstanding combat demonstration, Lieutenant Commander Martinez. Burke said with the kind of professional recognition that comes from experiencing exceptional tactical performance under genuine conditions. That was fighting effectiveness at the highest level I've encountered during my military career. Thompson approached Martinez with obvious amazement and rapidly developing respect for combat capabilities that had completely contradicted his assessment of her tactical suitability and operational potential. "Ma'am," Thompson said while observing the tactical aftermath that confirmed her extraordinary fighting performance. "Where did you develop combat skills sufficient to dominate experienced operators through superior technique?" Martinez was conducting routine medical equipment organization while responding with the same professional composure she maintained during standard procedures and administrative discussions. Previous assignments required medical personnel to operate in environments where conventional protection wasn't consistently available, and medical officers needed combat capabilities for patient safety when hostile forces threatened medical operations. She explained while organizing supplies with movements that now revealed carefully controlled fighting capability in every gesture. Williams asked the question that everyone present was considering but hadn't yet articulated clearly. "Lieutenant Commander Martinez, what kind of medical assignments required combat training sufficient to neutralize elite operators?" Martinez's answer provided insight into military specialties and operational environments that most SEALs never encountered despite their extensive experience with classified missions and advanced tactical training. Medical officers assigned to certain special operations units sometimes function in hostile territory where healthcare responsibilities and personal protection requirements become integrated rather than separated functions. She replied while continuing medical preparation with movements that revealed extraordinary tactical control and fighting conditioning. Colonel Burke, whose entire assessment of Martinez had been transformed by experiencing combat capabilities that exceeded his expectations, approached with obvious respect and professional curiosity about fighting training that had produced such exceptional results. "Lieutenant Commander Martinez," Burke said with recognition that extraordinary combat competence demanded, "I need to understand your tactical background so we can properly integrate your capabilities into our combat instruction and operational preparation programs." Martinez's response revealed specialized military experience that exceeded Burke's understanding of medical officer career progression and the scope of combat training available through military professional development systems. "Colonel Burke, I served with units conducting operations where medical personnel were required to function as integrated team members capable of any tactical role necessary for mission success," she replied. "Medical responsibilities included trauma care under hostile fire, but operational requirements also demanded combat capabilities for personal protection and team security when conventional support wasn't available." Over the following weeks, Martinez's complete background was gradually revealed through official channels, and her willingness to discuss operational experience that had previously been classified at levels preventing detailed explanation to personnel lacking appropriate clearances. She had served with Army Special Forces medical detachments conducting operations in denied territory where medical personnel were trained as combat specialists because their missions required functioning in environments where conventional security wasn't available and medical officers needed fighting capabilities that exceeded traditional healthcare roles. Her combat training had been conducted at specialized facilities that provided instruction to personnel operating in environments where fighting effectiveness could determine mission success, personnel survival, and strategic objectives that affected broader military operations. "The operations I supported required medical personnel who could function as tactical specialists while maintaining medical expertise," Martinez explained during comprehensive briefings with Burke and facility leadership about her background and potential contributions to training effectiveness. The tactical training programs at the facility were significantly enhanced through integration of Martinez's specialized knowledge and advanced combat techniques that exceeded what was available through standard SEAL training resources and conventional instruction methodologies. Her fighting methods provided instruction in sophisticated combat techniques that enabled all personnel to achieve tactical effectiveness against larger opponents through superior technical knowledge rather than relying solely on physical advantages or conventional strength. Thompson, whose initial skepticism about Martinez had been completely eliminated through witnessing combat capabilities that exceeded his tactical experience, became one of her most dedicated students and strongest advocates for expanded combat training integration throughout Naval Special Warfare Commands. Lieutenant Commander Martinez demonstrated that exceptional combat capability often conceals itself behind professional medical roles that don't reveal tactical background and specialized training. Thompson would later explain to new SEAL candidates during advanced combat instruction. Burke, whose professional assessment of Martinez had undergone complete transformation, became one of her strongest supporters for expanded tactical responsibilities and recognition throughout naval special warfare leadership structures. The combat techniques that Martinez shared were eventually adopted throughout Special Operations Commands, establishing enhanced standards for fighting effectiveness that improved tactical capabilities for personnel worldwide and revolutionized combat instruction at military installations. Her methods proved that superior tactical knowledge and technical precision could enable personnel to achieve combat effectiveness that exceeded conventional expectations, providing all operators with fighting capabilities they had never believed possible. But perhaps Martinez's most important contribution was demonstrating that assumptions based on professional assignments, apparent comfort levels with tactical training, and observable behavior patterns could be completely incorrect, and that exceptional combat capability often chooses professional competence over tactical display until circumstances require immediate demonstration of advanced fighting skills. The story of the medical officer who dominated a colonel became legendary throughout naval special warfare, shared with new SEAL candidates as definitive proof that exceptional combat capability often conceals itself behind professional medical roles that don't reveal tactical background and specialized fighting training. The most important lesson from Lieutenant Commander Martinez's combat demonstration, instructors would tell new candidates during advanced tactical training, is that fighting effectiveness is determined by results rather than assumptions, and that the people who appear least suited for combat operations might possess the most advanced tactical skills you'll encounter in military service. Years later, when Martinez was promoted to senior leadership positions in Special Operations Medical Command, her legacy continued through tactical training programs that integrated medical knowledge with advanced combat techniques, and through enhanced protocols that prevented discrimination based on assumptions about personnel tactical suitability and fighting capabilities. Her story reminded everyone in special operations that medical personnel must maintain readiness for integrated combat responsibilities that far exceed traditional healthcare roles, and that the most effective special operations medical officers are often those whose tactical training rivals or exceeds that of personnel whose primary specialization involves direct combat operations. The moment when Martinez had demonstrated impossible combat effectiveness had lasted only seconds, but its impact on naval special warfare training, tactical assessment protocols, and combat instruction continued for decades, reminding everyone that exceptional capability often chooses modesty over demonstration until circumstances demand immediate proof of advanced skills. The confrontation that could have resulted in continued professional marginalization had instead revealed combat expertise that enhanced the tactical capabilities and operational effectiveness of an entire training facility, proving that sometimes the most valuable discoveries come from witnessing people demonstrate skills that completely contradict our assumptions about their background and specialized capabilities. Before we leave you with this incredible story that challenges everything you believe about combat effectiveness and hidden capability, here's our final question. Have you ever witnessed someone completely reverse a dangerous situation through skills that nobody knew they possessed? Have you encountered those moments where the quiet professional turned out to be the most tactically capable person in the room? Share your most dramatic stories in the comments below. We want to hear about times when assumptions about people's combat abilities proved spectacularly wrong. And if this story taught you that true warriors often hide behind professional roles, that real combat effectiveness reveals itself only when circumstances demand it, and that underestimating the wrong person can result in complete tactical domination, hit that subscribe button and activate notifications. Every story we share reminds us that extraordinary fighters walk among us in disguise, waiting for the perfect moment to prove that everything we thought we knew about combat capability was completely incorrect. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the hidden world of tactical excellence. Remember, the The person you dismiss today as non-combative might be the one carrying fighting skills that could neutralize threats you never saw coming. We'll see you in the next story, where we'll uncover another incredible tale of hidden combat mastery and the moment when the underestimated become unstoppable.